Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here, and today we find ourselves in a galaxy where the secrets of interstellar travel have been lost to time and primitive species war over ancient technology. Now, through missions on numbered planets with a variety of biomes, you'll discover the true nature of your enemy, and you'll have the opportunity to unearth the rich story of the world of Phantom Epoch. Now, Phantom Epoch is a fully cooperative, 40-mission sci-fi dungeon crawler with a persistent campaign, unlockable components, character progression, and tactical combat. Now, it's for 1 to 4 players, it's for ages 14 and up, it takes 45 minutes per player to play, and is published by doTERRA Games. Now, it's on Kickstarter right now, so I'm going to show you how the game works, and I'll see you on the other side. This is a Kickstarter preview, so all the art and components you see here, they're not final, they're prototypes. To see the most up-to-date art and components, check the Kickstarter link in the description of this video. Phantom Epoch is a 40-mission campaign, and you're going to be unlocking different things throughout that campaign. You're going to be starting by selecting a character class like healer, ranger, rogue, or warrior, and it has some backstory about what that specific character class is, and you'll be able to even change character classes throughout the campaign. You'll also be able to select the species of your character class, like human, slink, or growlok, and you can select the sex of those as well. And just so you can see, the boards of your character classes all look a little bit different. Like the Rangers has this art in it, where the Rogue has this art, and each character class has a specific critical ability, like invisibility or doing 2 times damage. They'll also have their own weapon. And for example, now we have like the Warrior board and the Healer board, just to get an idea of what these look like. For example, maybe I selected the Slink Ranger. And you'll get the specific miniature to go along with that. You'll also get a character sheet, which you'll fill out your name, class, species, and things like that. And over the course of the campaign, you're going to be keeping track of things that you've owned and purchase action cards and things, so that when you stop and you come back to another session, you know everything that you start back up with. Now, the game comes with these mission books that are 2 separate books that go side by side, and they create one image. And these are going to be how you go through the different missions. Now, there is a tutorial mission to learn how to play called Awakening. And all of these gives you some introductions, some objectives, some things how to set up and start specifically for that mission. But there's a lot of things that say stop reading until something happens, and it will help you learn new rules and how to unlock different things as the missions go on. And for this tutorial mission, it's just sort of a half map here. But the main missions themselves actually use both of them, so it's one big map. And this is excellent because it helps you with really fast setup, and it brings you into the world with the artwork, and it has all the hexes lined up, and you'll be placing tokens and things on here to set up. And again, each mission is going to have the whole introduction, how to set up, when to stop reading, when to introduce new things, and things like that. Now here I have this first mission set up, and I have our 2 characters here. They spawn up in some of these spots. We have 2 enemies here, and these are specified by the mission itself. And from this angle, you can see they are standees. And we have their cards here. They're Growlok sentries and Growlok archers, and it tells you all about their hit points, their attack, their range, essentially their defense, their guard, and their critical ability. Now, the main goal, as we know it at the beginning of the mission, is to get to this treasure. However, to get to this treasure, there is a door here. Once you move onto this space, you'll be able to put an open door symbol, and you'll be able to get into this area. Now, the maps have different things in them. This is sort of like a different area than this. There'll be some dark lines that say there's a wall there, meaning it will block line of sight. There's other things, like we have hot lava, things that you can't walk through, but you could leap over, for example. We have different obstacles. Now, there's destructive obstacles that have this sort of dark blue line where you can go over there and hit it and do damage, and if it has damage, then it will kind of go away. There'll be a token that will be placed on there. But there's indestructible obstacles at this light blue line. This is an orb. Now, these orbs are great in the game. You're going to be trying to get them, and different things will happen when you get them. For example, on this one, if you get it, it says, hey, go to the extras book, which says stop, and go to the orb number 1, which is actually labeled right here, and you'll go on there and something in the campaign will unlock. Now the round will go through a certain flow, and the first thing you'll do is roll this decision die. This will help us make decisions for other things like the enemy characters and things like that throughout the round. But then there's an event card. There's 5 of these, 1 for each of the 5 rounds, and at the bottom of those is a round 6 or more event there. And when these flip over, different things can happen. Sometimes you might get lucky and there's nothing happening. Or maybe a mission event happens and you'll look at the specific scenario that's in the mission up top there, and it will tell you what to do. I don't want to spoil anything like that, but it will tell you what happens then. Or maybe there's field scanners that allow you to look at the next event card and see what it is and put it back on top so you know what's coming, things like that. Then the characters are going to select their action cards normally. Now you can rest, we'll talk about that in a moment, but normally you're going to be selecting some action cards. Now you'll look here, you have action points. This Slink has 11 of them. Now each different character class has their own deck of cards. You'll start with 10 cards like you see here at the beginning of the first mission there. And you'll have these cards over the course of the game and over the course in between missions and such. You might be able to buy and shop for other cards that you'll be able to kind of put in here that are more powerful. But everyone has their own deck and they all do sort of different things. And this tells you how many action points these cards cost in order to do that. We have 11. Now, even though this is cooperative, the players that are selecting their cards, you shouldn't show or discuss which cards that are in your hands or which ones you're thinking about doing. You can talk about things like, generally speaking, like, hey, I'm going to go activate the orb, or I'm going to go attack that archer, but you can't say exactly what you're doing and exactly what that card does. Because you're going to select your cards or put them face down, and once everyone is selected, you're going to flip them face up. So maybe I selected these 3 cards, and these numbers I used for my action points are actually the initiative. So we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then for each of the adversaries, we're going to take a species card and a class type. So we have a Growlithe Sentry and a Growlithe Archer. Each of those are going to get 1 card from here because they're both Growlithes, and the Archer's going to get this, and the Sentry's going to get that. And so here, this one has a move of 4. This one has a move and attack with a -2 because they're doing a lumbering charge. It's not that great. And then we look at the color of base that they are. This one has a yellow base to match to look at the hit points. Because if we look at these, you might not be able to tell, but these numbers will be painted white in the final version. You'll be able to see them better. But this is a yellow ring. This is a light blue ring, and it's actually pointing at a hit point number. This one has a +10 white disc under it. So this one's at 11, and this one's at 7. That's their hit points because that's what the cards told me to start them at for that. And so this one has an initiative of 3 + 3. So it's at 6 because it has a yellow base and they're going to attack. This one has 4 + 4 because it has a light blue base, so they're at 8. And you remember that I was at 7. So you're looking, and then the other player, let's say he was at 10, my other character. So this one here, you're going to go from lowest to highest. Whoever's the lowest initiative is going to go first. So because this one had the lowest initiative, 3 + 3 is 6, they're going to go first. Now when looking at the board during setup, actually, this shows you which person goes where. This is if there's 2 to 4 players. This is if there's another one if there's 4 players. So that's why we only placed 1. We put it here on that 2 to 4 spot right there. And then this one would go here if there's 2 to 4, and then here if there's a 3rd or 4th. So we're only playing with 2 players. This one would actually start there. So the first thing it's going to do is sometimes there's effects that might be, like bleeding or stuff like that, that might be affecting them. You would do whatever ongoing effects they may have. But then it's always going to determine their primary target. Then it's going to go with their species card, and then it's going to go with their class card. So we got to see what is the primary target of this player for these cards that are going to happen. So what they're going to do is, first of all, they're going to see if there's any enemy that's, the closest enemy that would be around them in range and line of sight. Now this one only has a range of 1, so there's really no enemies around them or in line of sight. So they'd go like to the next thing, which is they're going to be looking for the enemy that would take the fewest movement points to move and get closer to. Now here there's an object, so they couldn't get down here and run through the fire and get to this one. This should actually be, shorter than going all the way around. But there's an obstacle here, so that they're actually going to, move around to this enemy, because this one you could move through here, and then they could move, down here, and they'd be getting closer to this enemy. And that's regardless of anything, of the range, and regardless of how much they're going to be moving this turn. They're trying to find their primary target. So in this case, because this is here, this is sort of a longer way around to this one. So they're going to come down here, and this is going to be their primary target. Now, if it ended up where they were sort of like boxed in and there were a bunch of obstacles around them and they couldn't really get closer to any enemies, then they'd start destroying certain obstacles and things like that to be able to get out. And so here, again, we're going to do the species card first. They're going to move 4. Remember, they only have a range of 1. And that range is going to be important after it's done moving. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, I just mentioned that range is 1. Well, 1 away is here and here. That's not where the enemy is. And remember, they had a yellow base, which means they are going to attack. However, they only have a range of 1, and since they can't attack because that primary target is not within range of 1, they would convert this into movement points. So this is 3, and so they're going to move 3 more. And so they're going to come down here and go 1, 2, 3. And they're sort of blocking this area from this character because this is the one that's going to be going next. And so we're going to have to probably come and attack this, or I kind of wanted to move up to that orb, but now it's sort of blocking me. So it's always going to be working against you. And remember, you're going in turn order from that initiative. So how many cards you play and what initiatives you're playing, you got to decide whether what you want to do, you really want to go first and have lesser options, but you go first. Or do you want to have a bigger turn that you're going to go last, but you're going to have more options and more things to do, and that's sort of a trade-off. Now remember, they went first, and it was going to be us, but for the sake of keeping this basic and showing you how the basic turns work on both sides, I'm actually going to reset this back and pretend like it's our character's turn, and we had the lowest initiative, and we're going to go first. So let's just say it was our turn now, and we can use these. So we could move 5, but it must end into adjacent wall or object. We can move 3 and add 2 to our guard, which is like sort of an armor, if you will, and we could gain invisible. So we could move 3 and go 1, 2, 3, and then we would get plus 2 guard, and then we could move the 5, which would go us like up to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's next to an object, so that's good, or a wall. And so this is an object, so it's next to it. Now this is an object, again, that you could attack and try to damage and then defeat. And then once this is gone, we could put this destroyed token on it, and then in a future turn, we might move here, then activate this orb. Again, making sure it would get flipped over so it can't get done again, and we would reference that book I mentioned earlier. Now I've got a lot of flexibility, because let's say I played this card, which was an attack card. If I don't want to attack, I can convert these into movement points. So I could move up to 3 more instead of using the attack on this. So you have a lot of flexibility on what to do. Now let's look at the Ranger again. It has a ethereal bow, and it has a range of 5. And our critical ability is if we do critical damage, it's going to do damage times 2. Now let's say the card we were activating right now was Headshot. It's an attack. Remember, we have a range of 5. If the attack succeeds, but a critical strike was not rolled, you get to activate the available critical ability anyway. That's amazing. And let's say we were here, we wanted to hit this person here. We are definitely within range of 5. However, what you do is you look at a vertice and you put a straight line to a different vertice on another on the hex that you're shooting for. So this one actually could go to here because we're trying to hit the one that's in this, but it would go through this object, for example. Now when you go through objects, you're going to have to roll an accuracy die. So we've declared the target, and then you would roll the attack die. Now you could choose between 2 different attack dice. The blue one is a basic attack, and the yellow one is a blitz attack. Now the basic attack has consistent damage on the die, and it has a low chance of fumbling, which is what that is. The yellow one has high damage output potential with a chance of rolling a critical strike, which is what we see here, or a fumble. So you would choose which die to roll, then you'd roll it. If you get a fumble, they sort of miss and they're off balance, so it's treated as a value of 0, and they cannot perform any further attacks during this turn. A critical attack always counts as 3, and you get to use your critical ability. Like on the Ranger, it's damage times 2, so that would be a 6. Or maybe you just get an amount like 4. But then, if it's a range attack, the attacker must roll the accuracy die, and you must do that for every object or figure that basically your line of sight is going through. And we are going through this object here, so we did have to roll it once. Now this is success, so basically we were accurate enough to get around that and have it actually hit the enemy. If it's an X, you miss, and essentially you don't get to proceed with any further calculations or rolls. But if it's blocked, the object or figure that the accuracy is going through, like this one, actually hits that instead of the intended target. Now, depending on your target, they might have a certain amount of guard value, like this one has 2, this one has -1. So, for example, if we were trying to hit this person and we did 4 damage to them, it would be 4 minus 2, because his guard's 2, and then so he would go down 2 hit points. Where this one, if we did 4 damage, he has -1 guard, so he actually did 5 damage to them, and that would come down his hit points. And keep in mind, some other attacks might actually pierce the guard before you even do any damage to them. And keep in mind, there's a lot of different modifiers and equipments and items and things that can change a lot of this. This is just the very basics. Now, instead of playing action cards on your turn, you can rest. You're considered having an initiative of 1, so you do it first. You would gain back all of the cards that are in your discard pile that you used before, because it's basically giving you more options, getting all your action cards back. If you have any conditions like bleeding, they no longer cause damage. You recover, you can re-equip things, you can move things around. Basically, it's kind of like resetting, if you will. Now, after you and the adversaries have played their turns in initiative order, essentially you're going to go down and do some end of round effects. Now, keep in mind that some missions will have some bosses. These bosses have their own boards. They'll have a certain amount of hit point and attack, guard, and range, depending on how many players they're playing against. Has an inherent thing where they'll move to. And then there'll be cards that you'll be placing here. Like they might do action 1, which in this case, action 1 is claw, and it's an attack, right? Or maybe they'll have a card that does all the actions 1, 2, and 3. And so that's generally speaking how bosses work. They also have critical abilities as well. Now, once you've successfully completed the mission, different things happen. You remove all the components, you'll restore all your health, but you're going to be getting different rewards like skill points, and you'll be keeping track of those in the upper right-hand part of your character sheet. You're also going to be getting different mission rewards, which I'm not going to go into or spoil at this point. You also might be reading story expeditions. And now I don't want to spoil anything because there's a lot of unlockable things in this campaign, and there's plenty of decks that say stop and don't read and don't grab anything unless it tells you to. So I don't want to spoil anything or spoil the story on one of these cards, but basically they're going to give you a story and you are going to take a choice, make a choice between the group there, and you'll make a choice and you'll flip the card over, and depending on your choice, different things will happen, different things will unlock, and it's all very sort of a storyline that you're going to be going through. There's also a campaign sheet you're going to be keeping track of throughout the entire campaign. As you can see, there's the 3 different planets there. Barkov is the first one that the first mission was in. But as you go through the different campaigns, you're going to be going to different planets. You're going to be doing different missions. And when you unlock a new possible mission, you'll put a check mark in the green box of that. So here you see all the way down, the mission 5's unlocked, right? Depending on what happened. When you complete a mission, you'll put a red check mark in the red box for that mission. So here we've completed, mission 1 and 2 of the planets, but not the 3rd. You can go back and try missions again, things like that. Now, each of the missions have a certain amount of difficulty. Though you'll be able to draw 4 cards from each level deck of the level that you completed and before. So we completed level 1, we'd get 4 of these cards. If we completed a level 2, we get 4 of these and 4 of these. Between those 8 cards, we get to select one of them to keep that we can bring into future missions. And these might be some things that you would charge at the Nova Cells and get things like add 1 to the attack, or maybe you have this one that gives you +2 range, that's a level 2 one. Now remember, you're going to be equipping these at the beginning of the mission, but you can also re-equip them by resting as well. You can also spend skill points equal to some of these in order to get some of these new cards in your deck for action cards. You can also shop, depending on which planet that specific mission was on. You can shop through that, and you can spend a certain amount of Nova Cells that you have in order to get certain equipment. And these equipments go on your board in specific spots for the head, the body, and the foot. And again, some of them need Nova Cells to charge them, and they give you different abilities as well. And these you can equip in between missions or when you're resting as well. You can also change characters between missions as long as there's not more than one of the same class in your party. Now you may have noticed those equipments come in different tiers. Now on the campaign sheet, there's fame. That's a little ring around each of the planets that you see here. And you'll be gaining fame depending on different things, but a lot of times getting rewards from completing missions and things like that. But you'll get access to different tiers of those equipments depending on how high you are on the fame. For example, tier 2 equipment is available at 5 fame, and tier 3 is available at 10 fame. There's also a Phantom Epoch upgrade board, and upgrades can be performed on the board, which unlocks new features, and each of them have a certain library schematics. If you get those during a mission, you check this, and once you've filled in all the check marks, you can remove this, and there'll be some text there that will unlock some new things, some new rules, I don't want to spoil it for you, but another way of unlocking things throughout the campaign. And that, in a nutshell, is how Phantom Epoch works. Well, there you have Phantom Epoch, and as I showed in the overview, you can see it's full of missions, and you'll be traveling to different planets and unlocking new aspects as the campaign evolves. Now, if you'd like to see the most up-to-date art and components and all the different pledge levels available, you can click the link below me in the description of this video. Now, that's going to take you directly to the Kickstarter project page, and I'm sure that doTERRA Games would love your support.